For being here on I gotta say this also, it's very dry this year, don't you agree? And the weather is perfect, so thank you so much for having us. It's a really special thing to have a festival like this up in the Northeast. I hope you guys know what you have here. This is not something that you see everywhere. And so do whatever you can to always be a part of something so unique and so special. So thank you so much for always having us back here at Soulfest. So my wife Courtney and I, we got 3 kiddos, all right? I got a 6-year-old, I got a 4-year-old, and I got a newly minted 2-year-old, and they're all boys. And we recently got to go do some shows in Australia, and when we were preparing for the trip, I said to Courtney, I was like, hey, we're all going to Australia. This is going to be amazing. It's the first time you and I have been back since we've been married, and we got to take the boys because, you know, I got to show them a bit of heritage in Australia, you know what I'm saying? I probably wouldn't say it in that accent, but that, you know, you get the idea. And so I said, you know, we can go back and we see some of the sites that Daddy grew up with, where Daddy used to live, and all that sort of stuff. And then I said, the other thing, boys, it's really important for us to take you back to Australia because you're half Australian. And they were like, oh, okay. And then our 4-year-old came up to us and he said, which half? That's a true story. And but when my wife was pregnant with our 4-year-old, she was going through debilitating nausea. And she went to the doctor and said, hey, is there anything we can do about the nausea? And I said, yeah, take some of this medicine. You should feel much better. And for about 6 weeks, that was the case. But after that 6 weeks, the medicine lost its potency. And she went back to the doctor and said, hey, the nausea's back. Is there anything more that we can do? And they said, yeah, we'll just up the dosage and give you more of the medicine. And I was in Austin, Texas for a show. And Courtney calls me, and it was a fairly frantic phone call. She said, look, I need you to come home. And I'd never received that phone call at that point. I said, okay, well, you know, what's going on? She said, well, I've been taking this medicine, and now I just can't stop taking it. You know, I need you to come home, and we need to deal with this. And so I got on the next plane, went home, and I come in the back door, and I see Courtney. I said, you know, honey, you okay? And she said, well, I'm okay right now. But as the night progressed, she started saying things like, look, I know the doctors don't want me to take any more of this medicine, but what if I just take one more to get me through? You know, what if I just take one more now to just get me through the night, and we'll deal with this tomorrow? And it was at that point I realized, you know, we had a problem. And so the next day we went to a mental health facility, kind of a strange building, and we get in the waiting room, and there was nobody around, and eventually a nurse comes and says, Courtney, will you come on back? We both got up to go, and right before I got through the door, they said, Luke, you don't get to come back for the exam. You've got to stay out there. And there was just something about not being able to journey through that very, very difficult moment together that made both of us just feel so isolated and so lonely. And she comes out a little while later and she says, Luke, they're recommending intensive therapy. And so that's what we did. I would drop her off at 9 a.m. in the morning, pick her up at 2 p.m., and we did that for 2 weeks. And after that 2 weeks, she'd shown such remarkable improvement that the doctor said, hey, you're free to go here. You don't need to come back. You're on the right trajectory. Keep it up. And we were at home one evening, and she had this bottle of pills in her hand, and she said, Luke, I need to go and flush these pills because these pills represent so much shame and so much guilt in my life that I just need to see them leave. And I was reminded of a story about an explorer who went to a foreign land, and when he arrived on the beaches of this foreign land, he said to his men, hey, we're going to go explore the mountains. We're going to go explore and see what's over the horizon. We're going to see what this land has for us. And once he had finished explaining this to his men, he realized that none of his men wanted to follow him. They just wanted to return to what was comfortable. They just wanted to return to what was familiar. They just wanted to return to the past. And so the explorer waits a few days, and he calls all of his men back onto the shoreline. He says, I want every single soldier on the beaches here. And once they were all accounted for, he gave his generals the command to burn the ships. Because he says, we will not go back. We will not live in the past. We will not retreat. We will leave ourselves no option than to see what is over the horizon, than to see what is over the mountains, than to see what is in our future. And for my wife, when she took those pills and she flushed them, that was her moment of burning the past. And for so many of us here tonight, you might say to me, Luke, if you just understood the things that were said when I was a child, if you just understood the things that were done, if you just knew what I experienced last year, if you just knew what happened, you'd understand why I have to live in the past. And here's what I would say. I would say this: go and burn the shifts.